The hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews. It's your number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up? Sports Card Nation, episode 198. Hope it finds all of you doing well. Got a great show today. Going to get right into it. Today's guest on the show, Michael Osacky, lead appraiser at PSA, and appraisal is what he does. He is very good at it. We're going to learn today, you probably have your own thoughts on what appraising is, what it does, what it's used for, and unless you've used it or have had it done, even in other, niches, it has its place, especially in the hobby and especially what some of our collections or items in our collection are worth. And especially, I hate to say it, but with burglaries and robberies on the increase, not just in LCSs, but even in home break-ins, what he does is of utmost importance. And we're going to talk about that, how it's useful. And I had a lot of questions myself that he gave answers for. So great, interesting conversation. We're going to talk about the market and where it's at and some future speculation as well. Michael is very knowledgeable on the sports card market. He comes from a finance background. He brings a little bit of that to the table as well, makes him better at what he does.
It's time to start the show. Let's go. Time for our Hobby is the People announcer of the week.
This is Ed Johnson from Toronto in Canada, collector of Vladdy Jr., Blue Jays, Roberto Clemente, and Willie Mays. Never forget, the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People announcer of the week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.
Zion cases are the best card cases in the hobby. One quick walk around the National or even your local card show will bear that out. Whether it's a case to protect your one single Grail card or to hold and protect many of your precious cards, look no further than the Zion cases. And don't forget, our backpack cases have no equal. Check us out at www.zioncases.com and remember to use promo code SCN10 to save an additional 10% off your order. Zion Cases, we protect the hobby. Excited to talk to my next guest on the Sports Card Shop at Moco guest line. He is a certified USPAP appraiser. He's also the lead appraiser for PSA. And I'd like to welcome Mr. Michael Osacky. Welcome to Sports Card Nation.
Thanks, John, for having me. I look forward to chatting with you today.
Well, and likewise in return. I know what you do is very important. You know what you do is very important. But I think there's some in the hobby that maybe don't understand the role or the importance of appraiser. I get asked all the time from friends or people that know that I've been in the hobby a long time. Hey, John, what's this worth? And I can give them, a best guesstimate, with comps and all that stuff. But I guess what's the difference for someone like me who's not professionally trained, to get certified? How do you become a certified appraiser?
Yes, so I am certified and credentialed through an organization called ISA, International Society of Appraisers, and they invited me in years and years ago based on my expertise, my thought leadership, and recognition in the field. And ISA, they credential a whole host of different appraisers: wine, art, jewelry, dinosaur bones, you name it, and they probably credential different appraisers.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's easy for someone to say, I can tell you what everything's worth. But, I mean, you have, like you said, you're certified, you're accredited, and I want to give you a proper credit there. And someone will say, well, what's the difference? And, when we're talking about things being, if I know you'll agree with me with the way some things are valued at now and sort of the attention on the hobby by the mainstream media. We've seen what comes along with that. We've seen, unfortunately, burglaries increase in LCSs, even homes being broken into because of sports cards that are inside that home that, people with bad intentions know that it's there. So having insurance on your cards, to me, especially of a collection of significant value, sort of a no-brainer. But you can take pictures and do all that, but to have your stuff appraised, and I know you put letters to your appraisals, especially if something of major significance. You got to be safe than sorry. Anyone can say, I have a 52 Topps Mantle PSA 3, right? And the insurance could potentially fight that and say, well, you took a picture, but how do we know maybe you didn't sell it? Or how do we know it's on the premises? And so what you do sort of brings, sort of legitimacy to, claims. People get divorced, right? And those collections get caught in the middle, like kids do sometimes in divorces. And then just even for tax purposes as well. So kind of talk about, how the importance of what you do in some of those situations that I just mentioned.
Sure. So generally, there's 4 reasons or objectives why somebody would give me a phone call and why they want my services. 1, insurance. 2, divorce, which you just mentioned a couple minutes ago. And that's actually a big one the last couple of years with COVID. Everyone's been staying at home, talking to their spouse 24/7 a day, and they just cannot get along. So that's the second one. The third is donation. I do a lot of work with different Hall of Fames. Someone like an athlete or someone has a collection they want to donate and get the tax write-off. I do a lot of that work. And then the fourth reason is estate planning. And I will tell you, when it comes to insurance companies, they have gotten smarter in the last couple of years since COVID started. Pre-COVID, you could just tell your insurance company, I have a $50,000 collection, and they would say, okay, no problem. But in 2019, maybe it was worth $50,000, but in 2022, maybe that collection is worth $200,000 or $250,000. So the values have skyrocketed. In addition, just like anything in life, you get what you pay for. So maybe you're walking around the National and you see like an insurance company, and it's pretty cheap, and maybe it's $5 a month, $10 a month, and you get insured, and that's not a problem until there's a claim. That's the issue, right? And so a lot of times those cut rate insurance companies, there's a problem if there's a claim. But if I come in and do an appraisal, and I work with all the big insurance carriers, there's never an issue when it comes to a claim, because the insurance carriers know who I am. They know my reputation. And if I read a letter that says this is what it was worth, the insurance company is okay cutting a check on that.
Yeah, no doubt. And all important situations, right? Especially, even the tax write-off with the, with the IRS, you want to have, you want to be valid in what you're trying obviously to write off, especially on the donation side of things.
Time to hear from one of our great sponsors, but Sports Card Nation will be right back after that.
Like the athletes we admire, the Sports Card Shop is changing the game. We're not launching threes, bombing drives, or hitting dingers, but we have built a unique gathering spot for all collectors to trade cards, talk sports, play games, and watch their favorite athletes on the big screens. Yes, we've partnered with Panini, Upper Deck, Leaf, Topps, Fanatics, Pokemon, and others to bring you all the latest in sealed wax and singles. But the Sports Card Shop in New Buffalo, Michigan is much, much more. Our recent expansion brings collectible sneakers, Hot Wheels, and more sports and entertainment memorabilia into the mix. Our new Collector's Cave game room is the perfect place to throw a rip party, bring friends, rip packs, trade cards, play billiards, ping pong, shuffleboard, classic arcade, and Xbox games, all while watching your favorite sport on TV. Visit us at thesportscardshop.com. Follow us on social @_sportscardshop, or better yet, visit us in person to learn about special events, party packages, new products, and everything we're doing for you. The Sports Card Shop, connecting people, sports, and the hobby around the world.
Let's go! You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast.
How often, if you appraise something, you ever get in a situation, I'm sure you do, where someone thinks maybe the evaluation's too low. How do you handle where maybe the owner of the collection or cards doesn't agree necessarily with kind of where you value it?
Well, most of the time, people don't agree with me, whether it's informally or formally. People have an inherent bias to what they own, whether it's a baseball card, an automobile, their house. It's like trying to sell your house. You can list it at $1 million, but maybe you get a couple offers at $250,000. Well, that's where the market is. Just because you've owned a baseball card for 40, 50 years, it doesn't mean it's worth a lot of money. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But that's why the importance of third-party grading is so special and important, really, because if a card is graded a 4, well, there's a specific value assigned to that 4. Yes, maybe it's not as well centered as other 4s or vice versa, or but usually a PSA 4 for a specific card, people know, okay, this card is $5,000. So just because you think it's $100,000, it's impossible. It's not.
Yep. What do you do? This is something I thought about when I knew I was going to talk to you, Michael. Just a question, the way my mind works. I have you come, let's even just talk about like one card. Let's narrow it down. Whatever card, a Mantle, a Jackie Robinson rookie, you give your appraisal, and we saw what the market's kind of done, in the last 2 years. It's kind of settling back down now, obviously, but during that crescendo. So someone had it appraised during that time period where, there was records being set. And so you appraised it then, but now the market sort of, is where it kind of is now. And certain things have settled down. How does that written appraisal work, like insurance wise? Can the insurance company said, that appraisal was done in 2020 or 2021? Now we're in the late end of 2022. We're not disputing the appraisal as much as just the time it was done. How does that work as time passes?
Sure. That's a great question. And pre-COVID, I usually told my clients a collection should be reappraised every 4 or 5 years. But now it's maybe every 2 or 3 years. And going back to your question, how does that work? So let's say there's a claim. The insurance carrier will assign an investigator. So the client will submit the documents and show the appraisal that I did, let's say 12 months ago, sometime in 2021. And the investigator will maybe click around eBay, or maybe go to some auction house listings, or maybe talk to someone else in his network, or maybe even call me. I'm not sure. And so what will happen is, wow, Michael did an appraisal. This card was damaged or stolen, and he appraised it $100,000 12 months ago. But it looks like that card maybe is now $65,000 or $70,000. So the investigator, will do his due diligence and then talk to the client. Sometimes I'll have to get on the horn, have like a three-way conference call, and kind of let all the parties know where that card is today as it relates to value. Now, I will say, and this is important actually, for an insurance appraisal, the values that I use or any other appraiser would use is called, it's retail replacement value, RRV. which is very different from doing a donation appraisal where we use fair market value. Fair market value is basically at auction today, what would that item sell for? Retail replacement value is a little bit different. Sometimes the values can be inflated a little bit because we don't know at some point in the future there's going to be a claim or maybe not. And so because of that, sometimes the values are a little bit higher than fair market value. So that's also something to consider. But retail replacement values are important because when the insurance company goes to replace that item, in 99% of the cases, the insurance company is not going out to the market and going to find that exact card. What they'll do is they'll see what the asking price is usually somewhere, and they'll say, okay, the asking price is $80,000. All right, how about we just cut a check for $80,000? And that's usually how that works.
Yeah. Same question. Maybe I probably should have asked this first, truth be told. Same question, but sort of in reverse. You appraise a card. When you appraise it, let's just use even numbers. It's $50,000 your appraisal at the time, but 12 months, 18 months later, that card is now more valued, higher. It's went up now. It's 80 or 100,000. The person has your appraisal at 50. Something, God forbid, something bad happens. It's stolen, and is that going to be a situation where the insurance company is going to say, hey, listen, you have an appraisal for 50, that's all we can give you? Or will they call you and say, what is this value now? Same thing, like the same example. How does that work when the value goes up from the time the appraisal was originally done?
So I'm kind of laughing inside because what happens in that case, the client or the owner of the item in nearly all the cases knows that the item has gone up. And so you can be certain that he or she will submit all of the supporting documents to the insurance company so that they know that everybody in the world knows that that item has gone up in value, and here's the proof. Obviously, in the reverse, they're not so quick to show supporting documents that the value has gone down.
Going to take a quick commercial break, but we'll be right back after that with more with Michael Osacky.
Introducing the only auction house dedicated exclusively to the cards of the 1990s. Josh Adams and John Linden have created an auction company solely for the rare, scarce, and hard-to-find inserts and parallels of the 1990s. Whether it be basketball, baseball, football, or hockey, 90s auctions will have it. Each auction will consist of smaller lots between 100 and 120 lots, so your cards won't get lost in the shuffle. Founded on the principles of fairness, honesty, and integrity, 90s auction was created by collectors for collectors. Register and consign today at 90sauctions.com. That's 90 little s auctions.com.
Sports Card Nation is back with more with Michael Osacky. Your background, you went for finance and stock market. How does that, translate? A lot of people have compared the hobby to the stock market, Michael. I agree on some fronts. They have similarities, and other times I can't connect the dots. But, how do you see that comparison and having that experience on the financial side, now bringing that to the hobby side?
It's interesting and I think important. I have always operated on a contrarian point of view. And what that means is when everyone's buying, I want to sell. When everyone's jumping out the window, I want to buy. And if you follow me on Instagram, it's at Sports Appraisals. In January 31st of last year, so 2021, which was the day after Golden Auction sold 2 Michael Jordan rookie cards, PSA 10s for $725,000. And within 24 hours, he sold an additional 2 privately. So in 24 hours, 4 of them sold for over $700,000. So the day after, I came out on Instagram. And this is kind of going back to my finance, the contrarian view, the analytical brain of mine. And I said, this is the top in the Michael Jordan market. Then 2 weeks later, again, this is all posted on my and I got a lot of hate mail. I got some horrible messages. Right around Valentine's Day, I said, this is the top in the overall, the entire sports collectibles market. Watch out below. And then I had some downside projections for the MJ card of 300 grand. Here it is today, 200 grand. And so nobody wanted to hear that because, including myself, I have a collection. I want it to keep going up and up and up. But I understand how markets work. And I've been involved in the stock market since the mid-1990s. And just like the stock market, this market, there's ebbs and flows. And so I correctly read what was going on in our market. And so, so back to your question, it helps because sometimes I do consulting for some high net worth individuals or hedge funds, and they want to know, we have $5-10 million to invest. Is now a good time to do it? And so they rely on me and my expertise to tell them, either save them money or make money. So it's super interesting.
Yeah, no doubt. You mentioned you collect. I'll be nosy here. Share what you want. Kind of what I know you're a vintage guy like myself, but any more specifics? Is it certain teams, rookie? Where does your general interest go in your personal collection?
I'm a big 1914 Cracker Jack fan, collector. Yep. Forbes magazine, I think in 2017, named me the king of Cracker Jack cards. I'm a big 33 Gaudy card set guy. It's a great set, 240 cards. It's littered with Hall of Famers, as you know, 4 Babe Ruths, 2 Lou Gehrig's. I like the Tito 6 set. So I guess I like what other people like as well. But yes, I am a vintage guy. You're right. You're spot on. I am a vintage guy for a variety of reasons. One, that's just how I got started in the hobby in the 1990s. I also think that there's potentially less risk as it relates to the modern cards. As I think about Justin Herbert and Pat Mahomes and a lot of these guys. And what if someone gets injured? What if someone gets arrested? What if someone has a lousy season? What if they get traded? There's a million things that could happen there. But I know that Mickey Mantle, Hank Aaron, and Willie Mays is not going to be going to jail for a steroid scandal, right? And so that's why I like the vintage so much.
Yeah, no doubt. It's I second that. It's those careers are in the books. Their records are sealed, like you said. They're not going to have a bad year. Then whether they're going to be in the Hall of Fame or not, already for the most part, in most cases, has been determined. Like you said, it's safer. And quite frankly, I always tell on this show. Frankly, there's just a lot less of that stuff as well. It's almost as simple as that too, and that's going to lead into another question. Now, I think I know the answer to this, but I got to ask just to with your own obviously collection, there's value there. You can't appraise your own collection. You have to use someone that maybe but you can't. It's sort of like a conflict of interest to say, hey, my cards are worth this, just so for insurance purposes or whatever the case may be.
That's correct. Yeah. Because there is a conflict of interest. I could say it's worth $100 million and it's not even close to that, and so, but again, going back to my point from earlier, if, let's say half of my collection are cards that are PSA graded, the values there are pretty much set in stone as far as current prices. We know what a PSA 5 is for a specific card. So, there's no way anyone can really artificially inflate that value.
Yeah. For someone who maybe hasn't, dealt with getting their cards insured or don't know where to start, what kind of advice can you give them? What options might they have?
My advice is, before you call me, take a good hard look at your collection and really understand what's there. And I'm saying that because so many people have large collections from the 80s and 90s that are essentially worthless. And I can't tell you how many times a day people will call me and they're so excited because they tell me, I have a large collection. And when I hear a large collection, to me, I get so turned off. Even though the person calling is excited, I'm the opposite. The reason being is because usually if you have such a large collection, it's worthless. It's from the 80s. It's from the 90s. Someone has 200,000 cards from 1987 to 1994. Just donate them, right? Because I charge for my service and I'm busy. I have a backlog. And so you need to make certain that what you have does make sense to have it appraised by me or someone else or whatever it is. Additionally, one of the services that I provide, being a partner with PSA, is besides appraising, which probably 95% of the collections I see are raw, is I can say, okay, these, you have a couple thousand cards. These 6 should be graded by PSA, because they're high value or for whatever reason. So because card grading can get very expensive these days, people are looking for someone that can correctly tell them, what should be graded. Because pre-COVID, people were sending in every single card they owned, which contributed to the nearly 15 million cards in backlog. And then they would get the cards back. They would spend whatever it was, 10, 12, 15 bucks to get the card graded. And the card comes back a 6 or 7 for a modern era card. The card's worth $1 or $2. And so financially, they're in the rears. And so that's an important service that I also provide.
Yeah, no doubt.
Time for a quick break, but we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, have you heard about Collectible? It's the one-stop shop where any collector can buy and trade affordable shares in some of the most rare and valuable sports cards and memorabilia in the world, starting from just $5. From 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 10s and Wilt Chamberlain's iconic rookie uniform to one-of-one Patrick Mahomes RPAs, rare LeBron James logo mans, and everything in between, Collectible is creating never-before-seen access and opportunities for all. Let's grow the hobby we love together. Please note this is not a recommendation or solicitation to buy any security. All investment decisions should be undertaken after doing your own research.
Thanks for sticking with us. Let's return to the show.
I got to ask you, with what you do, has it influenced even how you collect? Have you changed kind of or pivoted anything you've done just from observations or what you've seen or not necessarily?
It really hasn't, but it's given me a greater perspective that what I'm collecting, what I'm interested in, has greater room to grow long term. And I just think part of the reason why I haven't purchased or really collected more in the last couple of years is just because it's been so busy. Pretty much every single person involved in the hobby for the past 2.5 years has been working 7 days a week, 15-hour days, card shops, auction houses, grading companies, appraisers, you name it. It's just been, luckily, knock on wood, such a huge win. And of course, there's been some M&A, companies being acquired. So that's been, it's just been super, super busy.
So obviously part of your job, there's a lot of traveling involved. I mean, how much, what percentage of the year are you sort of on the move, if you will?
150 days out of the year.
So you're not home, almost half the year you're not home.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. And I try during the month of December, I try and kind of pack it in, the first week of December and call it a year because of the holidays. But I'm always somewhere in a different city and I love it. I have the best job in the world. Every day, seeing a new collection, seeing new people, learning the stories and the backgrounds behind the collections. That too is interesting. A lot of times the stuff has been passed down from prior generations, which, by the way, some of those stories are great and some of them are great, but horrible, meaning that I can't tell you how many times people will tell me this great story that the grandfather got a signed Babe Ruth baseball. I take one look at it. I'm like this is fake. And they're like, every Christmas, our grandpa would tell us the story. 30 of us would gather around in the room for 30, 40, 50 years. I'm like, no, it's like, this is not Babe Ruth's signature. And then it kind of breaks their heart. Unfortunately, most of what I do is breaking bad news to people. This autograph is no good. This is a reprint. This is a forgery. This card's been trimmed. You think this is worth $100,000. It's worth $5,000. But over the years, I've gotten better at breaking the news to people. It's just part of what I need to do.
Yeah, you got to be honest. That's what they're hiring you to do. And if by not, you're not doing your job. But I'm sure, like you said, it's tough. No one wants to hear, obviously, bad news. Someone has an expensive one card. I mean, if they pay for shipping and insurance and do all that, can you appraise it where if they send it to you and then pay, everything's paid for on the user end. Will you appraise like that? Someone sends you something and then you can send it back, or does it all generally have to be done in person?
If somebody has one card that's very valuable and that card has been graded, I can do the appraisal virtually, meaning the person can send me a picture of the front and back, and I'll take a look, and I can virtually do the appraisal, still do the appraisal report, and there will be a line item in the appraisal report called a limiting condition, which is perfectly acceptable. That doesn't affect the value of the appraisal. It's just telling the person, the client, and the potential insurance company that I didn't see it in person. I saw it via high resolution pictures, but that's perfectly okay. But the reason why I don't want to do that for 500 cards, it's too much work. It's just much easier if I see it in person with 500 cards. But yes, for one card, perfectly acceptable. Just send me pictures.
Yeah. It might be a silly question, but you also need proof that they have it in their possession, right? That way they're not just sending you necessarily pictures of someone else's card, let's say, that they, stole off the internet or whatever the case may be.
Correct. And some people try and do that. I actually had a couple of weeks ago, a guy via Instagram try to do that. It started off a little shady, and as I asked more and more questions, I could tell, I don't know if he was trying to do some sort of insurance scam or what the purpose was, but something was off there.
Yeah, I mean, this from your financial background. Anyone that can make any money, even unscrupulously, people are going to attempt it. Unfortunately, that's the day and age that we're in. We mentioned at the top of the show, about we're seeing more burglaries and break-ins and LCSs. Even some brazen criminals that are doing it during store opening hours as well. Advice to car stores for those LCS owners that are listening in. I mean, if you can give any sort of advice, what would you tell them?
I'm actually appraising an entire local card shop next week here in the state of Illinois. But the advice I would give them is you should have a lot of cameras, both inside and outside. And also at night before you close up, usually the card shops will have like one important display case with all the high-end items. It could be high-grade cards, or it could be unopened boxes, whatever. It would be great if you could put them in a safe somewhere at the location, because usually what happens is the people who break in are doing it very quickly. Maybe they're in there for 2 or 3 minutes, and they sometimes will not go after the safe because it's too hard to get into. And so for them, they see a bunch of other stuff. They may or may not know some of the stuff is targeted. People know what they want, but they'll just take whatever is available. It's there, it's out in the open. Let's just put it in the duffel bag and go. So if you could put everything in the safety deposit box, safe, that would be advised.
Yeah, I agree. I've said that on a Hobby Quick Hits is my smaller show with just me, where I tackle a topic. And, I had a card store myself, Michael, way back in the good old days, 1992 to 97. A little different hobby. You can't compare. It's almost apples to oranges now. But I get asked every so often, John, would you ever open a store again? Probably not. But I always say if I did, I'd have one of those industrial fire safes, those big, heavy safes. And like you said, it's almost like doing a card show in your store, right? At the end of the day, anything of significance and high-end probably should be, I know it would be a pain in the butt, but better it be a pain in the butt than that stuff get taken from you and robbed, put it in that safe. So right on the money, I agree, because I've said that myself. And, someone had mentioned me like, well, what about taking it home every night? Well, when you're leaving the store with who knows what kind of value, you're a target, you're a mark as well. I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, so I think that the safe is the best bet. Like you said, a lot of these burglars we're seeing, Michael, this as well as I do, a good percentage of them, the perpetrators are coming in and kind of scoping it out before, and sort of have in mind, if they do it, what case they're already going for. Like you said, they're trying to get in and out in minutes. And so, messing around with a big safe is not part of what they're trying to do. And
yeah. And you know what, John? And let me add one thing.
Yep, go ahead.
I was talking to a local card shop owner about this very issue. And what he's done is he actually has two big safes, but only one of them has stuff in it at night. The other one is completely empty. So what he does is he kind of hides the first one, which is completely empty, hoping the robbers will find that one. They'll spend 2, 3, 5 minutes trying to break in. And when they do, it's empty. And when they see it's empty, they'll run out because they're so pissed off. And then he hides really good the second safe that has all the good stuff, because the chances of them, finding the second safe or looking for the second safe after not finding stuff in the first safe is probably slim to none.
Yeah, decoy safe. I've never heard that. That's pretty interesting. And every little wrinkle, right, can help you. And that, one safe is great. Two safes to throw maybe someone off and cost perpetrators more time. A lot of what they do is based on time. They don't want to be there. Most of these stores now have in minimum an alarm system, good ones where they go to the local authorities and then they will send their police officers to the scene. So they want to get, like you said, they want to get in and out. So the more stuff that can delay or throw a monkey wrench into what they're trying to accomplish, the better off you could be.
You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast. We'll be right back after this break.
Are you a new sports cards collector or someone returning to the hobby? Maybe you're just looking for a friendly, trustworthy hobby community to hang out with and enjoy collecting. Midwest Box Breaks has been bringing collectors together for many years with affordable breaks, helpful threads, and a Discord group packed with generous people who genuinely care about the hobby and other collectors. Check out the breaks at MidwestBoxBreaks.com. Our goal is to bring you as much value as possible. Also, find us on Twitter at MidwestBoxBreaks.
Hey folks, John here. Just wanted to remind you, use the discount code MBB10 for 10% off your first order at MidwestBoxBreaks.com.
Let's go! You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast.
Seeing a lot of new, shatterproof glass where the integrity's impacted, but you can't punch it necessarily a hole through it where someone can step in or go through it. I know there was an attempted robbery recently in Dallas where that glass actually thwarted anything being taken. You had to replace the glass, but it's a lot easier and probably better to replace a pane or sheet of glass than hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of dollars worth of inventory. And so we're just seeing more of this, which makes what you do all the more important, and what shop owners do on their end very critical as well. So I definitely wanted to get, I knew this is something you'd have a great answer for, and you did. Getting into the modern stuff here, coming down the home stretch. I know you're a vintage guy. I am. I do some of the new stuff myself. We see what's going on with the Fanatics hobby takeover. Kind of putting your financial hat back on, if you will, and just the lots of experience that you have. I mean, what do you think of? Are you concerned? I'll speak for myself. It's a little concerning to me. I think anytime you have sort of one company control that much of the market, I think that can be sort of dangerous or risky, if you will. So I get asked all the time, Michael, what do I think? And it's concerning. But you have a lot more experience when it comes to financial stuff. I just wanted to get your sort of, everything's obviously speculation, but sort of your thoughts on maybe where the current hobby's going.
Yeah, so I do agree that monopolies or oligopolies are never good usually. But But I do believe in Michael Rubin and his management team. They're super brilliant, super smart people. And Michael got started decades ago collecting cards. He also owns a ski shop. But he's a really, really smart individual. And he's obviously doing this to, grow the hobby and make money. He's trying to grow the pie. And I think what we're going to see maybe in the next 2 or 3 years, when you're watching the Super Bowl or maybe Sunday Night Baseball, you're going to start seeing Fanatics commercials. Don't forget the Fanatics 2025 baseball cards come out tomorrow or wherever it is. And so more people on a regular basis are going to be learning and finding out about the hobby and buying more packs of cards. And that's a good thing long term. Sure, there's probably going to be some hiccups on the way, but I do believe in him and his team to do good, even though, yes, they are buying up a lot of companies. They bought Topps, and they're going to keep buying companies because that's kind of how they grow. They grow not necessarily organically, but inorganically by buying companies.
Yeah, and listen, no one I think legitimately can argue that Michael Rubin isn't an intelligent and smart guy. I think the track record speaks for itself. I guess just from a hobbyist perspective, I'm worried. When you spend a lot of money buying a lot of these companies, the licensing that they've also acquired 20-year deals, it's speculated to be. I just worry. But we talk about one of the allures, the attraction of vintage cards is there's just not that many of them, right? There's a finite amount. I guess I'm just worried about like presses that sort of never stop. Not that it's always just about dollars and cents. It isn't. You can collect what you enjoy and the passion, not worry about necessarily what it's worth. But I mean, most people at the end of the day, 95% of people sort of want their cards to be worth as much as they potentially can be. So I worry about, for that aspect, I worry just about maybe the production where we're headed there. Again, I don't have any information other than speculation but sort of, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so that for me is a non-issue. I think the companies have learned a lot since, the junk wax era, 87 to 94. And I think everyone realizes now that, we can never, ever again go back to doing that because that just kills profits, kills the hobby, detracts people. And so that was a big, big learning point back then.
Well, I hope they're thinking the same, and I hope if they're not, I hope they hear you or me or whoever else, and take a little advice there and heed that advice. I guess time will tell, right? We just got to see what happens each day. It's been a crazy news cycle in the hobby, unlike past years, and it's fun. If you're not having fun, I don't know what you're doing, but. I want to thank you for giving some time, great advice, and, talking about what you do. I don't think people necessarily understand it or the importance of it. So with that being said, Michael, give out, your website where people can reach you if they need your services and all that good stuff. Take your time.
Sure. They can find me on my website, baseballintheattic.com. They can email me, Michael@baseballintheattic.com. On Instagram, it's at Sports Appraisals. On Twitter, at Baseball Attic. And on Facebook, at Baseball Attic. So hopefully you can find me in one of those places or send me an email. I'm happy to help.
One last question, too. I meant to ask you this earlier. Now, you're at the National for the most part every year. I've seen you. Do you do anything in person at the National as far as appraising, or is it difficult?
So I have a booth there. It's sometimes I do appraisals there, but very rarely. It's more for networking, seeing old friends, meeting new people, lead generation, connecting with PSA. It's just kind of difficult to do an appraisal there. It's just so busy. And people are always stopping by and saying hi, and also some people want privacy. They don't want to, bring a collection into a room with tens of thousands of people and just put it on a table for everyone to see.
Yeah, no doubt. I that's what I thought, but I wanted to ask you about that. Well, again, Michael, thank you for your time and the service you provide. And you heard Michael give out where you can find them and get in contact them to get your needs taken care of. Thanks again.
Thanks, John, for having me.
Right, there you have it from the man himself, Michael Osacky. He knows what he's talking about. So, again, if you have some expensive cards, collection, whether it be at home or in a store setting, right? Appraisal is something you should think about. I gave you some tips, too, about, first time I've ever heard about a decoy safe, but not a bad idea after hearing about it. So, a lot of great information there. You can take something from. I appreciate them coming on. We're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to come back with some closing thoughts.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com. Or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
That's going to do it for this week's episode of Sports Card Nation. Want to thank you out there listening to the show. As I always say, know you, know us. And thank you to our guest this week, Michael Osacky. Great info. What he does is very crucial and important to the hobby. Hope you learned some stuff. I did too. As much as I knew about appraisal and what he does, I learned more. I think you could tell by the questions I asked that I didn't have answers to. The other thing I love besides what he does is, a lot of people that do stuff like that sometimes aren't in the space that they work in or aren't in the hobby in this case. But Michael is. He's a collector, like we talked about, heavy vintage, so man after my own heart. And so he knows what he's talking about and is very good at it. So he gave out his credentials. If you need his services or have a question, he'd be more than happy to answer it for you. With that being said, we're going to call it a show. Again, another episode of Sports Card Nation next Friday. But don't forget, Monday we have Hobby Quick Hits. Also want to give a shameless plug to our YouTube channel, Sports Card Nation Podcast. Trying to put more content on that and build that up. We're not necessarily known for our YouTube stuff, but most of our interviews that appear on Sports Card Nation appear on YouTube in video form 3 weeks after you hear them here. So if you like an episode but want to see the video, you can head over to our YouTube channel. The other thing I'm doing, Hobby Quick Hits, usually gets posted the same day to YouTube. No video there, just audio. So for those that like to consume the audio via YouTube, I know some of our listeners do it that way. But I've also started a new weekly YouTube-only series called Card Story. And every Wednesday, we premiere a new episode. We're up to 3 episodes. It'll be 4 episodes by the time you hear this episode. And every Wednesday, we take a card from my either personal collection or even my show inventory. I should say item rather than card, mostly cards. And I kind of talk about not only the card, but the player depicted on the card and how I've acquired it, and some of the backstory. We learn about, the accolades and about the player on the card. And it's, to be very informative, not just hobby-wise, but even sports-wise. I don't reveal the card right away. I give you some teases and hints to who it is by giving some stats. So kind of interactive and fun where maybe you try to guess the player that's going to be on the card by the hints that I give. So check out our YouTube channel, Sports Card Nation Podcast. Trying to get a little more active on that, build that up a little bit. Listen, subscribe, like, much appreciated if you do. With that, I bid you well. Stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you next time.